Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I'm Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends. I hope everyone is doing absolutely fabulous today. I feel like it's been a little while since I released a podcast. I know we try and do them weekly, which we do. I've been recording them. I just haven't had a lot of bandwidth or time to actually get to the production side of things. So I'm really excited that I am going to be sharing this episode with shining the light on male breast cancer. We have Bob, Vance, and Rod who are joining us today to share their stories being diagnosed with breast cancer. And I have to say, this whole conversation, while it is a serious topic, because breast cancer is, we have so much fun. We are laughing and it's kind of a riot. So I really hope you enjoy the conversation. In other news, as you're following survivingbreastcancer.org on social media, that is SBC_ORG on Twitter, survivingbreastcancer.org, all one word, on Instagram. Plus we have our Facebook page, all of the things. I just want to let you guys know in 2023, because that's the year that we're in now, depending on when you're listening, we have a lot going on. And so just in a couple of weeks, we're going to be heading down to the Young Survivor Coalition 2023 Summit in North Carolina. So if you are there, please look us up. We're going to be exhibiting. I would love to meet you. And, find us on social media. Let us know that you're going to be there, or send me a text or email at laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. I love to connect with our community. So yeah, I guess that's my shout out for right now. And let's get this party started.
I like your haircut.
That's better.
Hey, Survivor brother. I see we look just alike. Mine even shining just a little bit.
Yeah, yours is shinier. Yeah. You work harder on it.
Oh, now, is that your chemo hair, Vance, or is that?
Oh no! Even before I started getting chemo, I wore a bald head because some gray was showing up there. I'd rather have it here, but not there for some reason.
Welcome to the conversation.
I didn't have a lot, but I started cutting it off after cancer, going through treatments, and I donate the money to a local cancer charity. I figured I spent was $20 a month, so now I give it away rather than, make believe that I have.
Totally. Well, awesome. This is so exciting. So welcome to the day after Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I feel like we have a lot to unpack with just that statement alone. I know that we are recording for our podcast tonight. We are live on Facebook. So welcome to all of our Facebook viewers. And I am here with a stellar crew that I know is going to bring the party to the conversation tonight. We have Bob, Rod, and Vance, who are just amazing individuals in and of themselves. And tonight, you guys are really, really the stars and educating me and our community on male breast cancer. People who know me know I love to go deep quick, right? I feel like, okay, breast cancer, we're already BFFs. So I'm going to ask you the hard questions right off the bat, but I'm going to try and pace myself. So how about we start off with some introductions about who you are, where you're calling in from, because I know we have a lot of coordinates on the call today. And then we'll circle back with some more conversations about when you were first diagnosed, stage and phase. How about that?
Okay.
So Bob, how about we start with you? You're in my top left, so let's go there.
Okay. Bob Huebner. I'm out of Wallingford, Connecticut. Live with my wife. We have three children, a daughter, 2 boys, and a third son by breath, and that's a whole nother story. And it's on a 16-year-old. But again, that's my introduction.
Thank you. And Rod, I'm so excited to see you because it just rocks my world that you're in the morning of the next day.
Yeah. What do you want? The lottery results?
Sure. Oh my God. Tell me.
No. I didn't win. Okay. So I'm Rod Ritchie. And yes, it's in the morning here at 10 a.m. in Brisbane, Australia. I'm around on the social media and people know me there. I can tell you about my diagnosis later if you like, but I'm pleased to be here, and it's nice to see a couple of other guys in the same boat.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for joining us all the way from Australia as well. So I feel like this is late for me because everyone also knows that my bedtime's like 9 p.m. So I'm really trying to rally. And then Vance, oh my God, you have an amazing story that I can't wait to dig into as well. But just quickly, like, where are you calling in from and a little bit about yourself?
My name is Vance Stacks Jr. I am a 3-time male breast cancer survivor. I'm calling from Memphis, Tennessee. I am a grandfather of 7 beautiful grandchildren, and I have 3 children myself. And I turned my pain into my passion, and I started a nonprofit, and that nonprofit is Pink Ain't What You Think. And I called it that so it could bring attention to me. And when they hear that phrase, pink ain't what you think, they don't mind putting pink on because it opens a conversation and a dialogue.
Exactly. Oh, that's amazing. I think that's similar to just the pre-show, what we were talking about with Bob as well, is like the awareness piece. It opens a dialogue, it opens a conversation. So before we dive into the topics and the tips and recommendations and all of the things we need to know, I would just love to hear more about your story and how you discovered that you had breast cancer. And I would say, how is male breast cancer similar or different than just breast cancer in general, right? I feel like a lot of times we have this big umbrella of like, you have breast cancer. And I didn't know there were all these subtypes and different types and luminal A's and B's. And, I didn't know. It was not part of my vocabulary. And so then to be introduced to not just breast cancer and learning a new language of cancer, but then learning how that affects you specifically from a gender perspective as well. So we'll just go around my Hollywood squares once more. So Bob, how about you kick us off with how you found out and how long you've been living with a diagnosis?
Well, I got to tell you, I knew 3 to 6 months ahead of time that I knew something was wrong. And I'm in emergency medicine and it's kind of my background. So I should have known better. And sometimes medical people make the worst patients. It was irritating. The seat belts actually saved my life because I was actually putting the seat belt over my shoulder, underneath my arm, whatever I could do, because it was irritating my chest terribly. And as a volunteer firefighter, we were just doing some training, and I had air packs, and I couldn't wear the air pack on my chest. It was so irritating. And then that following Monday was Memorial Day, 2015, and I'm driving the fire apparatus, and I'm dodging the seat belts again. I'm like, that's it. I got to do something. I'm very fortunate. My wife actually is a nurse practitioner in women's health. And she's seen me, obviously periodically or every day, and didn't even notice the differences. But I had retraction of the nipple. I had soreness. I didn't have it almost looked like the other side swelled up. And I had just passed 2 physicals, a personal and a fire department physical. And what happened was they asked me, do you have any problems? I said, should I worry about this? And they asked me, does it bother you? And I said, no, because I got to be a tough guy, right? And almost killed me. So my wife actually, they did not touch me. They just said, okay, don't worry about it. If it gets worse, come talk to us. If that had been a woman, so what are the differences? One of your questions was, what are the differences? Men are treated a little bit different. We got to know our body. And if that had been by protocol, should have been an instant mammogram.
Right. Or
for a guy, that's not, that didn't happen. They didn't even touch me. They didn't palpitate me. My wife did. And 72 hours later, I had a biopsy and I was scheduled for seeing a surgeon. So it was like things happened real quick after that. And I did have ductal carcinoma right behind the nipple, and it was 1 centimeter. And again, we'll go on in more details, but I don't want to take up the whole time. That went into surgery, had a full right side mastectomy, come out and they go, gee, you're stage 3, because we also had to take about 8 to 10 lymph nodes out of you. I think they took a total of 14. So you're getting a nice 30 weeks of chemo and 15 weeks of radiation, and we'll see how you do from there.
Holy cow.
I personally think that I always tell my surgeon that she saved me the other stuff I just did for fun, but I wouldn't recommend it for anybody.
No, it's something you'd never recommend to even your worst enemies, right?
No.
So, okay. So so many questions right off the bat too, but quickly, if you're comfortable, like how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 57.
57. Okay.
So,
And then any family history of breast cancer?
No family history of breast cancer. My brother had passed away a year to the day that I tell my parents that I had cancer, but he passed away from lung cancer. Again, never smoked, and all of a sudden just it comes down to lung. I had no history. I don't smoke, consume no to very little alcohol. I have no risk factors, except that I did serve in the military as a tank commander, exposed to all sorts of nasties, and then a firefighter for about 18 years at the time.
Okay.
So again, what caused it? Some type of environmental.
For sure. Sure. Well, thank you for sharing that and being another voice, because I think the more that we talk about it, the more awareness we're bringing to it, and then hopefully being able to actually move the needle to maybe change some of the simplistic things that we could even do when we get a physical, get a checkup. And educating, today is November 1st, feel it on the 1st, right? Like know your body and know what the signs and symptoms are. So thank you for that. Rod, let me pass things over to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know that you write a blog for us every month. You are a huge advocate in the male breast cancer space on social media. If people don't already know you, they need to know you. So please feel free, tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay. Well, 2014, age 64, I was had an inflamed chest with a inverted nipple, and I went to my doctor a couple of times over a couple of months, and she said it could be a cyst, could be something. Finally, 3 months later, I said, no, I want a scan or some sort. So she sent me off for an ultrasound. I could see the ultrasound technician's eyes sort of widening, and he went out to get a doctor, etc. So a couple of days later, there was a biopsy, and the diagnosis was stage 3B. I went to the surgeon. She said, no, we're not going to operate on you till you do your chemo. So I started with chemo, and I did, the heaviest chemo available. That process lasted about 6 months, as we all know it can. And then surgery, so mastectomy, left mastectomy, and all the lymph nodes removed. And afterwards, some of the lymph nodes were cancerous. So they said, well, now radiation time, that'll help clean things up. And there was 33 doses of radiation, daily doses, as we know. And so at the end of all that, my oncologist said, well, that was the kitchen sink treatment. So I said, okay, that's all right. I have to say I wasn't overly, I looked a bit shabby once you've gone through chemo, but you get on with things, and I work from home, so that was fine. I tried to keep up exercise during chemo, as they said it's a good thing. Then on tamoxifen. Well, 2 years after the breast cancer diagnosis, I got prostate cancer diagnosis, so I was treated with a prostatectomy. Another cancer. I should mention at this point that my mum died young from breast cancer. So everyone said, oh, you got to go get a genetic test. Well, there's no genetic factor apart from a BRCA1 variation of unknown significance. So there's nothing they can do about that. Cruising on. That was all 8 years ago. There's no evidence of the disease or diseases. So I'm just... I thought, pretty soon afterwards, a bit like Vance, just get straight into telling people about this. And we talk about male breast cancer, but it's really breast cancer in males. It's the same cancer, and we're all treated pretty much the same. The thing that I keep banging on about is there's not much research for men. I'd like to see men go into studies more, and maybe they could develop some statistics that are aimed at us. And who knows what's going to happen about that. So basically, that's my story.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And we are on our way to San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium in a few weeks. So we will be advocating for those studies as well. That's a really good point that, the research and the science is only as good as the people who participated in the trials, right? Yeah. So I appreciate that. And the question I want to get into, and just like a quick educational clarification, right? Like, so you were mentioning that you had a full axillary node dissection because of the spread to the lymph nodes, and then same with you, Bob. But you guys are two different stages. So, Bob, you mentioned that you were stage 3, and then Rod, like 2B. So,
no, I was 3B. 3B.
Oh, 3B. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So 3B, and so
same stages, Bob.
Same stages. Okay, and that's because of the number of lymph nodes that were involved.
Yes, and also the inflammation in my case, which makes it inflammatory breast cancer, which is, a slightly different beast, but one of the variations that you talked about before.
Yes, we'll circle back with all the variations. Thank you for sharing that. Vance, let me turn things over to you. Pain to purpose. You have really, taken to the streets, similar to all of the gentlemen on the call tonight, about really advocating and really sharing what this breast cancer has done to the male population. And so I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about your story, not just once, but 3 times.
When I first found out, I was probably 43 years old. I had a vehicle accident. Mine is kind of a spiritual journey. From where God had brought me from and what the devil really meant for bad in my life. I was a police officer almost over 15 years in Memphis, and I had a DUI and flipped my car, had an accident, and that's how we found the little dark spot. And once we found the spot, they sent me to my first oncologist. He did a biopsy. After that biopsy, he said there is nothing. You're okay. It's not cancerous. Within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that nothing had turned into kind of a rubbery spot under my nipple. And so I went back to my primary care physician, and I told my primary care physician, I said, hey, that small dot we saw now has turned into this. And he touched it and said, okay, let me send you to another oncologist. So he sent me to another oncologist. That oncologist did a biopsy. The following week, he told me, hey, sir, you have breast cancer. And I told him, breast cancer? I said, men don't get breast cancer. And of course, I didn't say it in that vernacular, but he understood. I was very upset with him that you're coming here in my room and lying and stop playing. He was like, no, sir, you have breast cancer. The following Thursday, I was prepping for surgery. It was only in stage 1, and I didn't have to do any chemo or radiation. They went in and did a biopsy to my left side and removed all the tissues and everything. And so after that, I enjoyed 6 years of remission. And I was at the family reunion in 2019. And I started feeling lethargic again. Started feeling like if I went to bed at 9 o'clock at night and I woke up at 10 in the morning, it felt like I hadn't been to sleep, and I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want anybody to bother me. It just sent me into this headspace. And so after that, I came back home to Memphis and I went to the doctor. True enough, my cancer had returned. I was in stage 3 this time, and they did another mastectomy, went in because they had already removed all the fatty tissue. This time, it was almost going to attach itself to my bone, but we caught it in time. They scraped everything out, and then I did 27 rounds of chemotherapy. Doing great. Started this little ministry. Nobody told me when you go to chemotherapy how cold you're going to be. So I was extremely cold. And this volunteer brought me a blanket. And he said, are you cold, Mr. Stacks? I said, yes. So he gave me this blanket, and it just made my treatment so much better. So I went to my friends and I said, hey, friends, I got an idea. Could y'all meet me Friday at West Cancer Center and drop off blankets, because we need to fill this closet. There's a need for blankets. And so that day, I think we raised over 300 and some blankets for West Cancer Center, and we filled the closet. I stopped doing that. That was my assignment. I stopped doing that because people were promising me they were going to give blankets and give money to get blankets. But they did, and my name was out there. So I stopped. I went back for a checkup 6 months later. Excited. I just finished my chemo. My scars had just healed, kind of started healing up. and went in the room, and West Cancer out in Germantown has 3 floors. The higher you go up, the more trouble you're in. And so I started on the first floor, and then all of a sudden I moved to the 2nd floor. And I said, what's going on? I'm just here for a checkup. Well, we're going to check a couple things. The doctor want to make sure everything's okay. All of a sudden they moved me to the 3rd floor. At that point, I started getting upset. Okay, what's going on? And then they tell me that, hey, we see that your cancer has returned and you're in stage 3. I'm like, what? This is 6 months. They immediately scheduled me for a 3rd surgery, mastectomy. Then I had to do 32 rounds of radiation this time. And as of April 29th, 2021, I am breast cancer free.
Oh, amazing, amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to use that quote that the higher up you go, the more concerned you should be, because my breast cancer center is on the 7th floor. So I take that. I know.
Yeah, I like the days. I like the days when I go in and just stay on the 1st floor and walk back out. Like, hey, have a good day. See y'all next checkup.
Yep, validate the parking. We're all set here.
Or ask them where the basement is.
Ooh. So interesting. My
don't want to go there. As a police officer, when we had to go to the hospital to retrieve bodies. We go to the basement.
Right. Don't ask.
So we don't do basement.
Don't do basements.
No basements. Yeah.
No basements.
My radiation was in the basement. I was like, oh, this must be some really bad stuff if we're in the basement. Oh, Bob, what about you? Any crazy stories at the hospital?
Well, one of the things I had to get used to is here I am, military, fire, first responder, and all this. I got 3 brothers, and now I'm thrust into this world of pink. They're giving me pink ice packs. They're giving me pink everything. I'm like, I don't like pink. I hate pink. It kind of like makes me so anyway. I've gotten used to it, and now I don't see it that way. But my cancer center. Well, I went to Yale Breast Cancer Center, which is, I'm fortunate, it's only 20 minutes from me. I got a lot of great research, an unbelievable center. It's only on the 1st floor, so I don't have to worry about going up or down. The problem is how deep in do you go?
Yes,
because you stay on the outside, you're just like they're talking to you and taking information. The deeper you go, the more dressed they are, and the less clothes you have on, and the more tubes you got in you.
That's a good one.
So, but again, my biggest thing was I'm like, yes, I have what they classify as a woman's disease, but it's a human disease. It just happens to affect women more than men. But I have it, and it was one of those things that I could have let it beat me up, but I pretty much turned it into, hey, why not me? And better me than someone who doesn't have the treatment center that I have, the research center that I have, a wife that's so supportive, and knowing what about breast cancer. It's been I'll tell you, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but it's changed my life. It actually made me a better person. It really opened up my eyes, how tough women are, because I'm sitting there again, and as you said, I'm cold. I got a warm blanket on, great. And I'm talking to some of the people next to me, ladies and stuff, and they're like, well, I got to worry about picking up my kid and still making dinner tonight. And I'm going, man, I'm just lucky if I can walk out of here. So I learned a level of tough, that women have an incredible level of toughness that I don't have. I dealt with it as best I could, but it was very humbling, and it definitely made me a better person. But I'm reminded every day when I look in the mirror, those scars. And it was one of those things that I'm like, what happened? I mean, you're not going to recognize my body, from one day to the next. So, and I just I really have I just like to read it. You guys probably know it, but my wife puts this, it's right over my desk. I see it every day. Steve Marboli. My scars tell a story. They're a reminder of times when life tried to break me, but failed. They were the markings where the structure of my character was welded. And I had that looking at it. So anytime I feel bad, I'm like, yeah, so what? I got scars, but that's my character has been welded. And my goal now is to, help other people going through breast cancer, if so be it, but whatever cancer, and if they need support, and just because it's lonely, it can be lonely.
Yes.
300 hours, and you start thinking you're getting in your own head and wondering, well, what's going on, and and what's my family going to do? So everybody here has been through that, but the more people that you have to support you, the better it's going to be.
I want to piggyback off what Bob just said, because if it wasn't for my 3 F's, Bob, my family, my faith, and my friends, I wouldn't have made it. My family that rallied around me, my friends that came by on the days that I didn't want to see anybody, they forced themselves in to make me smile and make me get out of bed and make me laugh. And my faith, knowing that God was going to bring me through. He promised that this that I was going through wasn't going to last always. And in his word, it says, this too shall pass. Yes. And that's all I leaned on, is that this too shall pass. I don't care how my body feels. I don't care how the scars look. This too shall pass.
Yeah. You guys bring up some really good, commonalities, right? Because I think on the women's side, right, it's like, okay, you're having this amputation and I'm so concerned about body image. And I'm reminded about it every single time I try and go shopping, whether it's online shopping or in-person shopping, things don't fit right. And, I want to dig into this a little bit more too, because we didn't actually talk if you guys had hormone positive receptor breast cancer or not, but I did. And I gained a crap load of weight in all of the wrong areas. And so, to even just go shopping to buy a dress, it's like flat on top, big on the bottom, is like, they don't make that for people. Right. And so trying to come to terms with body image. Rod, I want to turn things over to you as well. So how does having breast cancer as a male impact you? And what have you noticed in society and communities?
Well, as the other guys know, first of all, there's very low awareness out there, and I think that's what we're all keen to change. First year or two, I'd turn up to the pink functions in October, and I'd wear a blue T-shirt, and they'd go, what's that all about? And I'd say, men get this too. And they go, oh, right, okay. So there's a long education process, which I'm happy to be a part of. As we keep saying, it's a genderless disease, but I think we're such a minority, and we have to understand that we're 1% or so of the total diagnosis. So we shouldn't expect too much, but I'm always also keen to, as I said before, try and get some research going on males so that we can see, are we going to be reacting to drugs the same way? Are the chemos suitable for us? It appears maybe that is the case, but then we go on hormone blockers. Is tamoxifen the best, or some aromatase inhibitor, or, I think I'm always looking at new research papers, and I go and look at the cohort, and I see it's just mainly women being checked. And so I've been trying to get some of the charities, the Love people and other charities, saying, hey, come on, just ask the researchers to include men. And they go, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. I mean, obviously there's times when not all research is appropriate. Maybe we're looking at, hormone levels or something that doesn't apply to men. But a lot of the times, and a lot of the studies are sociological, like how do you feel after? How do you handle it? Do you get depression? All this sort of stuff. And we're out there as a sort of satellite group, which, as I said, is fine because there ain't that many of us. But I think there's a space for us. And I found over the years that we're more and more included, and I'm very optimistic. I'm not upset or angry about anything. I just think, we do what we do, and it's great that there are men that will come out. And the other thing I've written about a lot is there's a stigma attached to it, and I'm sure Bob and Vance will just get this right away, and that is men they know with it are very loath to come forward. It's embarrassment. It's, the sea of pink around them. And I just want to say, look, okay, it's, we get it. We need a space there. Don't give us the pink gown all the time. We don't need the comfort pack for period pain or whatever. It's like there's a whole new world out there, and we, we'll work our way through it. But we should help other guys. Mainly, we should help other guys get used to the fact that they can get breast cancer and make sure they're aware of it. Awareness in women having breast cancer, well, let's say it's 100%. I don't think we need to do much research. There have been some studies on men, and it's more like 30%. Well, let's get that up to 90%, and I think that's the goal thing. I'm sure it is for all of us.
Exactly. Anyone can get this disease. And just like inflammatory or lobular, there's all sorts of breakdowns in terms of the percentage in which you would have this type of umbrella of a breast cancer disease. And so even just the 1% of males with breast cancer or being diagnosed with breast cancer, it's like, well, what are the unique needs that we can tailor our programs to support you and asking you what you need? And I think that's really where we can come in and really make change. We've done that with our in fact, Rod, I'm gonna piggyback because we have a Thursday Night Thrivers group specifically for inflammatory breast cancer.
Okay.
And so, should we have one specifically for male breast cancer? Should we, we have one for MBC, we have one for triple negative, like all of the things, right? But what are some of the needs that this community would want, as people who have gone through this disease? Bob, what comes to your mind, or as you guys are ruminating on this question, what can we do better to support you?
Honestly, I do more supporting for others. Mm-hmm. So this is the first kind of thing, like somebody's telling me they got support for me. Because one of the things I did, I reached out and tried to look, Male Breast Cancer Coalition stuff. And they wanted to enhance their own story. And I wasn't really that interested. Again, I was in a lot of, and I'm like, I want to focus on first responders in my community and help there. And it doesn't matter. Cancer is cancer. It all sucks.
Yes.
And breast cancer, there's all sorts of different types, but where are you classified? It's breast cancer.
I recently gave a presentation. I was a keynote and during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I was like, there is no good breast cancer. Yeah. People are like, oh, you got the good kind. I'm like, the good kind? It's freaking cancer. Can we just stop there, drop the mic, right? So I'm with you, Bob.
Yeah. So, and again, so I'm triple positive. Besides anybody who has breast cancer, nobody knows what triple positive is. And I'm not going to get into it with them because it starts going down a rat hole that they can't comprehend. I barely can comprehend it. And I don't even get into the details. That's for my oncologist to figure out and tell me what they recommend. One of the things that did happen, though, was, again, people not talking about it and stuff like that. By wanting to do that, hold on a second. I did have a friend who was a mentor who had breast cancer, Jerry Campion, who was here, and he actually put together for Yale a blue binder for male breast cancer patients because everything we had was the pink and this. Hey, when was the last time you got your period? And circle the boobs. It looks like, I'm like, man, I don't look like that. I don't act like that. So he actually put a binder together. And we became quite.
Boobs. I love that.
Yeah,
We're ignorant sometimes, like the simple things.
Yeah. So it kind of and again, you got to laugh at it. And I've been very fortunate that I've had that good humor to laugh at it. Go, great. I don't know. When did I have my period last? This morning,
right. Or you say never, they get really concerned.
Yeah, never, whatever.
Can you be pregnant?
Are you pregnant? So it's just all those little nuances of yes, it's a predominantly woman's disease. Guys get it too. Can you be customized? Should we, can break it down into the great details? I mean, the pin that we kind of go by is the, I don't know if you can actually see it here. It's that pink and blue.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah. And it actually says male breast cancer. And I wear it to all events. And people go, oh, breast cancer. I'm like, no, male breast cancer. And they're like, male breast. And you know what? I have conversations with a lot of people, and I can't tell you how many people have, and it hasn't, within the last 3 years, they've come up and said, thank you for starting that conversation. I went and got checked, and I did something else. And again, I don't want to get into their details or problems. But I'm just glad that they thought about it. And I kind of make sure that they don't lie to their doctor like I did. Don't be a Bob, tell them the truth.
Oh, it's so hard. I feel like, all of us fall into that, scary moment of, you're half naked. You're in this ugly looking Johnny. And they're like, so is there anything else we should know? And you're like, no, I just want to get out of here. Like, I'm already uncomfortable and I don't want to tell you any other problems I'm having because seriously, right? And it's like the doorknob handle. I think there was like some article that was recently published where it's like, as they're about to turn the doorknob and walk out of the room, that is when we're like, oh, but by the way, I have this pain, or by the way, right? Like as they're about to exit. And, I think that's just a phenomenon that we all need to just feel more comfortable about, that the more that we share with our primary care, the more information they have to help better prescribe diagnostic tests should something else elevate, right?
Right. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that are in the medical world that haven't met a male breast cancer patient. So hey, what do you want to know? I tell them. Exactly.
Rod, what has your experience been? Do you notice anything different that's like tailored to Australia specifically versus some other countries, or is it pretty unison?
I think it's pretty universal, the treatment and the behaviours. Talking about numbers, in the US, there might be 2,800 or so a year cases of guys. In Australia, it's a couple of hundred. In the UK, it's, 400 or 500, and so it goes. But in some African countries, the percentage isn't 1%, it's like 25%. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They have no treatment in the form of chemo. There's one radiation facility in the whole country for maybe 20 million people. And, Vance, we talk about the discrepancies here with people of colour, and in some other places it's significantly worse. So I think we have to get our head around the whole world as cancer patients, and celebrate the things that are good here, but also lobby for things that we need to get us back up there. So, look, I found, and also we talk about the world of pink, but I tell you what, there's a lot of fantastic women out there working in this space, medical people, patient advocates, and they're the nicest people you can meet. And, I don't see an us and them at all. I think we're all in the same boat, and that's what people get to understand, and that's what we really all should celebrate.
And I think having those partnerships and that unified voice of this is breast cancer. And, I just go back to, we were approached by several organizations through HR of like, do a lunch and learn at their companies. And it's like, actually, I should share with you, Vance, too, because you're like one of my, I'm talking about like male breast cancer. I'm talking about you, Rod, for like writing for us and being a 3-time survivor, or just, I myself was a vegan before being diagnosed. You're like, how the hell did that happen to you? Like, and so against all of the odds, even though we're trying to do everything right, it's like, I want to leave people with the action items of know your family history and check your breast. And, just start there, and then we can move the needle a little bit. Rod, I wanted to ask you if you can remind me, what were you triple positive also, or what was your
No, I was negative for HR and ER, and HER2 positive. Now that, positive for the first two and negative for the third one, and that is 90% of males have that expression of hormone. So Bob is unusual. He tells me triple positive. That is, I've only met two other men with that diagnosis. So ER/HR minus and positive and HER2 negative. So that's what most men are, and that's supposedly the best. You talk about the best one to treat, or the easiest one to treat. Now we all know there's plenty of patients that are triple negative, and that's probably at the other end of the scale. That's harder to treat, and then you've got the age. The younger you are, the perhaps your prognosis is not as good, although treatments are improving all the time. But it is complicated disease, and you talked, before, Laura, about the different subtypes and types and groupings, and it's good to know, what people actually have. And if you're talking to a person, it's like, oh yes, that's that. And it's so complex. It really is.
Absolutely. And the science is evolving. We're learning more like every single day. And so, what I think is important to put in perspective is with ER and estrogen receptor or progesterone receptor positive breast cancer, that typically is like 70 to 80% of all breast cancers, right? And so as a scientist, you're thinking, okay, well, if that's the 70 to 80%, I'm going to focus my research on that type. And so the ripple effect of that is that we have more treatments for those types of breast cancers, whereas, triple negative tends to be very aggressive and very prominent also in our African American communities. So, how can we also make sure that the light is shown on triple negative breast cancer, encouraging people of, non-white Caucasian people to participate, including males, to participate in clinical trials. So that way we can make sure that we're creating these therapeutics that match the people who are getting that disease. So that's my little postal for tonight. But Vance,
that's good.
Let me turn things over to you. What type of breast cancer did you have? Were they all the same for all three?
Yeah, they were. I think he called it BRCA1, and then they did the gene test, and I came back not having the gene. But 6 months later, I found out that two of my aunties on my father's side had breast cancer. So that's where it came from. And I was almost about to join the Johnson & Johnson lawsuit because I was a police officer for over 15 years or 20 years. And every day I would use the talcum powder in my vest to keep my vest dry and keep that smell away. Yeah. And so I thought that when the women got ovarian, I thought, okay, maybe that's where my breast cancer came from. But when they did the test, we found out it's really, I had the actual hormone from my family gene, my pool. But ever since we started running a PSA here in Memphis, it has changed the conversation about men and women. I've spoken at so many events this month, and every event that you went to, they almost had a blue table. They recognize male breast cancer. You'll see a whole sea of pink tables, but there's a blue table in the midst somewhere. And ever since, they've been running this PSA for 2 years now, and the word about male breast cancer is really, really getting out here in Memphis. People are coming up asking, and we have shirts that we wear that says, "Pink ain't what you think." And people always ask, well, what's that mean? And we tell them, when you think about pink, you think about the women's side and you forget about the men's side. So pink ain't what you think. And that shirt, that logo, it starts a conversation in men. I mean, I don't care how brawly you are, the trucker, the fireman, it starts a conversation. And, that's all I want to do, invoke conversation about men getting breast cancer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Awareness is such a big piece, especially around, male breast cancer, right? Because what I'm hearing, even just on this call, that, it progresses so quickly, right? I think I heard multiple people say tonight, we think it's stage 1, and then to find out that it becomes stage 3 really is like, okay, so we're still catching it, but like, by margins, right? And so people just need to be super aware that this can happen to them and not to scare anybody. So this isn't like a scary thing, because I think a lot of times too, we tell someone we have breast cancer and then people start to retract, and they're like, oh, if it happened to you, it can happen to me. And I'm scared, so I'm not going to talk to you because it might be contagious. And I'm like, okay, that's just weird, but like that happens, right? And so how can we talk about this conversation with people to make them empowered about their bodies and empowered and not feel shame or not feel embarrassed to bring it up with their physician, bring it up with their spouse, their friend, in the locker rooms, at the gym? Like, how can we normalize, I would say, the conversation? I'm open to ideas. I think opportunities like this to be on the podcast, to share it on social media, to elevate your voices and the amazing work that you guys are doing in Australia and Memphis, and, with the firefighting community and everything that you're doing, Bob, as well. Like, this is where it starts, like grassroots, but like, how can we amplify this so that during Breast Cancer Awareness Month come 2023, we are like, okay, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and here are all of the flags for breast cancer in pink and male breast cancer with the 2 colors, and MBC with all of their colors as well. And like, really knowing that it's not a one size fit all. I don't know. I get really revved up on these calls.
What I can say is that constantly talking about it, constantly every day speaking on it, speaking to as men as possible, in the grocery store, in the barbershop, at the car wash, cutting your yard, talking to your neighbor. It just take that time, because if we can just save one, that's all I need, So every opportunity I get, I'm in the grocery store picking up beans. I'm talking about male breast cancer. I'm talking about my experiences and letting you know that if I made it through it, you can make it through it too. So self-examination. I spoke at on the television show, and once I walked off stage, you could see all the cameramen doing self-examinations. Just speaking about it, just constantly speaking about it and making men aware. I was at UPS this past Friday, talking to the drivers of UPS, and there was 6 men walking all out to leave work. And I had my table set up, and it's pink and blue in the midst of all the pink tables there. So one guy hit another guy in the back and said, "Hey, men get breast cancer too." That's what my sign said on my table. They were joking. "Oh, boy, stop all that. Stop that." And then I spoke up real loud and said, "Yes, sir, because I'm a 3-time male breast cancer survivor. I've had 3 surgeries, 27 rounds, and 2 rounds of radiation." They stopped in their tracks and like, "Really, bruh? Really?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'm a survivor." And it was like, wow, men really can't get breast cancer? And that's the conversation at the door, heading to their cars. Yeah. So I just want to constantly speak about it.
Yeah, you're like the living proof, right? It's like, yes, it can happen. And so let's be proactive about it. Rod, I know you're writing a lot, not only for SBC, but just like your activism in general. Tell us a little bit more about your voice in this advocacy space.
Because I can write, I do. I've got an article coming to you this week, by the way, for the next thing.
And Rod, for those of you who don't know, holds me accountable. He's like, "I don't see it on the website yet. I need something on the website." Like he's really pushing the train here. So I'm super appreciative. So thank you.
Yeah. So my background is writing and editing and internet publishing, book publishing. I've got a long history of writing, including marketing and communication. So I just transferred at the time when I got diagnosed. I told you I was 64. I thought, I'll just transfer these skills over. And so I've written ever since. I write for Health Union in the States, and that's a paid job, but most of my writing is just voluntary, and I'm happy to do that. And I think it's like Vance sitting at the table, and you got the passers-by. With the internet, I mean, who cares where you are? You're in the States or Australia or Europe or who knows, and you can just get your word out there. And that's the fantastic thing about this connectivity that we have. And it's through those writing articles and podcasts and videos and the whole lot. I'm now the president of the board of directors of Male Breast Cancer Global Alliance, and I'm involved in other groups. Yeah, thank you very much. And I think it's sort of sometimes you think, has everyone heard me? And then I think Vance will back this up, and Bob as well. No, you haven't. You probably got nowhere much. And so I think, we better just keep going. And I think wherever you can and wherever you're healthy, I feel it's a great calling. And you know what the secret is for patient advocates and people like the people here, and you included, Laura. It gives us a buzz. You know what? And I think we all have to admit that it's not all just about everybody else. It's about us as well. And while ever we're all connected and we're all working for the same end, I think we feel good. And what's wrong with that? That's good for your mental health, isn't it?
Completely. I think, the work that I do for SBC, I'm sure same with all of you guys too. It's like the work that we're doing for our communities is so healing that people ask me, "I don't know how you do it. You have a full-time job, a family, all these things." And I'm like, I don't know. This is like where I get my energy from. And so thank you all for just being honestly my BFFs, because I have like canceled my social life to just hang out with my breast cancer friends because you guys get it. And, I think some of the things, I know we're approaching the top of our hour, so I do want to make sure that we invite you guys back for maybe a series, because we haven't talked about like hot flashes, symptoms, how to cope with symptoms. And I think hearing it from the male voice perspective is really helpful, right? Like it's one thing to read it on a blog of like, these are the symptoms I've had. But when we hear it from you guys, it puts that persona out there in the universe for people to identify with. And you guys become someone else's survivorship guide, honestly, right? We haven't talked about, how do you tell your families? How do you tell your spouse, your wives, your partners, your wives? I said that plural. I didn't mean that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you tell plural for the community here? But like, how do you tell your loved ones and then your kids, right? And so like, we're talking how hard it is to just internalize when you have a cancer diagnosis, how now you have a cancer diagnosis that's predominantly for women. Now you have to tell your children about this. Now you have to tell your work colleagues, like, okay, I just rattled off like 5 different blog posts for you to write about, Rod. But like, seriously, I want to invite all of you guys back so we can have these deeper conversations. And really maybe create a series around it and think about what collectively can we do if there needs to be, a virtual support group. It's perhaps, it is the 8 p.m. East Coast hour where this works for the US and Australia, or, I know we have our friends in Canada and the UK and all over the globe as well with the internet, but like, there needs to be some camaraderie around this to make people feel like what they're going through is normal. It's not, it's scary and horrifying, and I hear you. But then at the same time, look at the faces on the screen, and we are here to support you, regardless of stage and subtype. So that's my goal. And I just, so much more work to do. I wish it was earlier because I go to bed at 9 o'clock. I turn into a pumpkin. But
well, I'm happy to come back, and I think you've got a good crew here. Like people, the three of us can just talk on anything. So, and I, for one, certainly happy to come back. I hope Bob and Vance are as well.
I am happy to come back, but I also want to let you know, Rod, we just hosted Patricia Washburn here in Memphis this Saturday, and it was a pleasure meeting her. It was a pleasure. Lovely. It was a pleasure hosting her. And she left Memphis with a lot of goodies, I tell you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
I'm absolutely in it for returning because, again, yes, you get a buzz off it, but it's part of my healing talking about it. Because if I can give back, I'm healing. Because, that's who I am and that's who we are. One of the things, too, is, like I said, I'm sure you have them on there, but might also be interesting to have my wife on, who's a nurse practitioner who diagnoses people regularly with breast cancer. She actually uses my story to get people to take mammograms because they'll be like, I'm too small. It's uncomfortable. It hurts. She goes, let me tell you about my husband. He can do it. You can do it.
I love that.
That's right.
For sure. No, I think that would be fantastic. And, I think I might have something sitting in my inbox, but, Bob, would love to share your story on our website, help build out the male breast cancer support section of our website as well. I definitely want to link to your organization, Vance, as well, so people know about that. And then I'm also thinking, too, if you guys are interested, I'd love your feedback. We host a lot of complementary care programs, right? So we do artist therapy. And I do have to say, I don't know if you guys have ever tried it. I was like not a believer because I'm like, oh, I hear about it, but I'm not a believer. Oh my God, you guys. She was like, she's a breast cancer survivor herself. So she gets it, triple negative. And she's like, we're going to do a warm up. And I'm like, what's that? What's an art therapy warm up? Like, I don't get it. And she's like, can you just like scribble as hard as you can? And I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. And like, I broke my crayon, like scribbling because I was so stressed. But I'm like, that felt freaking good. And then she's like, what if you were a little delicate? Or what if you were this? Like this whole warm up, I'm like, within the first 10 minutes, I'm like sobbing because I'm like breaking through some sort of like harbored emotion. But I'm sharing this with you guys because like sometimes we don't realize that things like expressive writing or art therapy or a lot of the other support services that we offer at SBC, like are just truly amazing. And so I do want to just invite you personally to attend some of these classes with people who have experienced breast cancer and get it. And just like you all are paying it forward and, offering support to our collective. And I just think it's really amazing. And so thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you all on Facebook who are watching us live. This was impromptu to go live. But, again, Bob, Rod, and Vance, I do hope 3 of you are able to connect also offline. Because one thing I love to do is be a convener of good people, Boys Club, best people ever, and that we can continue the conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast are from personal experiences and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. Our podcasts are made possible because of donations from listeners like you, so please feel free to make a contribution through survivingbreastcancer.org/donate. And there are so many ways to get involved with our nonprofit and our organization, not just through listening to the podcast, but through all of our virtual programming. So you can check out all of our lineups by hopping over to survivingbreastcancer.org/events. And as always, all of our programs, services, and resources are absolutely free. Thanks again and keep on thriving.